By the time I hit my 50s, I'd learned a few things, like how family is precious. Work can always wait. And 99% of people over 50 already have the virus that causes shingles. Not everyone at risk will develop it, but I did. The painful, blistering rash disrupted my life for weeks. Don't learn about your shingles risk the hard way. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today. Sponsored by GSK.
All right, trying to figure the world out can be a tough job these days, and that's why I'm calling on all the wise men I know, like Gordon Chang, Gordon G. Chang, the global expert, the China expert, of course, author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America, the Coming Collapse of China, and China is Going to War. You can find him on X and go to GordonChang.com. Gordon Chang, welcome back. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, Greg, and thank you so much.
You bet. Now, listen, China kind of looms over pretty much everything that's going on in the world these days, including the negotiations between us and Iran in Switzerland. Just what is your take of how things are going? I know there's a lot of panic out there on the left and the right. Some of it I think is fake, but what do you make of it all?
Well, certainly there's a lot of news coming out, but it's contradictory, and I think we just have to wait because, these things just change by the hour. There's some news right now that Iran is going to use oil revenue, which the Treasury Department gave them a 60-day license. They're going to use some of that to actually purchase American farm products, which would be amazing. But, as I said, we're going to have to wait for this to settle down. And at the end of the 60-day period, we're going to see if this works or not.
60-day period. Some people are saying it may not take 60 days. It does seem like things are happening really quick. I mean, J.D. Vance is over there right now. I thought maybe he would join later. If it's 60 days, that's a long time, kind of. You think it's going to take that long?
I think it will take some time because we're dealing with incredibly important technical issues. Just to give you an example, the vice president talked about how Iran is allowing IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors, back into Iran. Now, that's good, but the question is, what are the terms of the inspections? So are they going to be the additional protocol inspections, which are anytime, any place, or are they going to be something less? And remember, the JCPOA, which was Obama's 2015 deal, fell apart after Iran denied IAEA inspectors the right to look at military facilities. And that's when Trump canceled and withdrew from the agreement. So all of this is going to be very much contingent on the specific terms. And that's going to take some time to actually negotiate.
I think a lot of the conversation seems to be forgetting that, we bombed Iran significantly. Operation Epic Fury, which took, 2 or 3 months, not the entire time, but a lot. We bombed them for a lot of days and nights. And then what happened last summer with the B-2 strike? What do they call that? Velvet Hammer. Like, somehow that's forgotten. It almost is like we're starting, this is square one. It's not square one. They haven't factored in President Trump's use of force and his willingness to use force, which was never a tool that Obama had. And, of course, we have, the results. We have, presumably, no nuclear anymore over there. And that's such a huge factor I don't think is getting enough attention. Is that fair, sir?
Well, that's fair. I mean, President Trump has an unusual negotiating style, and so it's difficult at this point to say whether it'll work or not. People, and certainly me, have concerns about the Memorandum of Understanding and the framework that it embodies, but we'll just have to see at the end of the 60-day period whether this comes good or not. So that's why it's important, I think, to give the president deference, maybe give him some guidance along the way. But clearly, we're going to have to wait to see whether this works.
All right. What guidance would you give him right now?
I'm concerned about relieving the pressure on Iran before they actually come to terms on many specific technical issues, which are going to be all important. So, for instance, the 60-day license that the Treasury Department has given to Iran to sell oil, I can understand that President Trump wants to see if the Iranians will reciprocate. If they do, that's great. But if they don't, then I think we have to go back to cutting off the flow of oil revenue to the regime.
All right. Now, what is China making about all of this? And how are they doing these days? Are they have they gotten their act together? I heard their economy last time I really thought about it was not doing well. Are they bad actors, good actors, neutral? What's their role in all of this?
Well, they were bad actors during the war because they supplied Iran with everything that it needed except for combat personnel. So it was, for instance, economic support, diplomatic support, propaganda support, weapons, and most important of all, targeting information, which the Iranians used to kill Americans. So they are bad actors, and clearly they're on Iran's side. When you step back and look at this entire process, Greg, if President Trump is able to get Iran out of China's orbit, that'll be a major success. And that's something we're not focusing on right now. Of course, we talk about ballistic missiles. We talk about the nuclear weapons program and their support for Hezbollah. But the bigger issue is going to always be where does Iran stand with regard to China? Because if China still controls Iran, this will not have been a good scenario for us. But if we're able to separate Tehran from Beijing, then that's a major win because Iran has been, up to now, China's proxy, disrupting the Middle East and elsewhere at Beijing's behest.
It's funny. I have a hard time picturing Iranians and Chinese in the same room. And I know they've been in cahoots for a long time. Does that go back a long time? When did they start this crazy alliance?
This goes back decades because Iran has a nuclear weapons program because of China. China directly and indirectly through Pakistan's AQ Khan network supplied all that Iran needed for a nuclear weapon. And so, when the Chinese say, well, President Trump disrupted the world, President Trump needs to stand back and say, well, look, the reason why there is a war is because you, Beijing, supplied the nuclear weapons program. So this goes back decades, and we have seen these tight economic links. Now, I agree with you. When you think about what Iran wants in the world, that's a global caliphate. And what Beijing wants, which is world domination by the Chinese, that's mutually inconsistent. You can't have both of those things at the same time. But in the here and now, Beijing and Tehran have made short-term decisions to cooperate with each other because they see that their interests, at least in the short term, coincide. And by the way, that means undermining the United States.
Of course it does. Of course it does. Hey, wait, real quick about China. Do they still want that? Do they still want global communism? I thought they kind of wised up about that. And, they need customers and are they really still moving in that direction? I guess, yeah, with that Belt and Road thing and they're starting all these things all over the world. Are they still really genuinely into that?
It's not global communism, but it is Chinese rule. And Xi Jinping has been pushing the notion that China has the right and obligation to rule the world. And since 2017, Chinese officials have actually talked in public about the moon and Mars as sovereign Chinese territory. So Xi Jinping is the most ambitious aggressor in history.
Oh, boy. What's the number one thing that people don't understand about China? You've been there. You've studied the place. You traveled extensively. Nobody knows China like you do, really, on our side here. What's the number one misconception?
I think it's that the regime is evil, and we are not willing to say that in public. And that's true of democracies. They always shy away from looking at the essential nature of hardline regimes. And so, we made that mistake about Osama bin Laden. We made that mistake about the Japanese, and we're now making the same mistake about the Chinese. It's inherent in democracies.
And President Trump should kind of go a little bit harder on them? Should he have gone to China? Should he have done all that stuff?
I don't think so, but the point is President Trump gave Xi Jinping an off-ramp. We have seen since the summit the Chinese have decided not to take that off-ramp by ramping up pressure on both Taiwan and the Philippines, and also by assaulting us. And that is when you look at their additional restrictions on exports of rare earths and all the rest of it, they have not reciprocated President Trump's gesture of friendship. And that's just the way that regime operates. It does not reciprocate. It always presses the advantage. It sees friendship as a sign of weakness. They're wrong about that, but that's the way they view it.
And how about that silly Joe Biden? For decades, I'm best friends with Xi Jinping. I went around the moon with him so many times we were on a plane. Like that was not helpful. That was the strangest, weirdest, most corrupt act that took place in plain sight. His bragging about how well he knew Xi.
And his son taking a lot of money from a Chinese company, which was obviously at the direction of the Communist Party's United Front Work Department. So put those two things together, and it was not good at all for us.
No, so damaging to the country. Well, Gordon Chang, we so appreciate you, and you tell it like you see it, and we respect that. You know, sometimes people don't want to hear, but they need to hear. Gordon G. Chang, at Gordon G. Chang on X, and his books are everywhere, wherever books are sold. You really, you'll know so much more than the people in the fake news and elsewhere, and even in government. Gordon, we thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, Greg. I really appreciate it.